ROCKNAK, and this is our new 490 that just came in from France. We had it trucked from Baltimore where the ship dropped it off, and today we're going to go through the boat and see what this one's all about.
Starting off our comparison, let's look at some specifications. The 490 is 3 feet 4 inches larger than the 440. That's the length on deck. Due to the reverse bow, we see a greater difference in waterline length over just length on deck. About 4 feet 1 inch difference between the two boats. The largest difference is in displacement, with the 490 being 24% more than the 440. The 490 makes up for the difference in displacement with more sail area. The 440 and the 490 have roughly the same sail area to displacement ratio. The mattresses in both cabins of the 440 and the 490 are exactly the same, with the exception of the 440 two cabin having a larger aft berth, even more than the 490 two cabin. If you figure 4 people going out for 14 days, the difference between the two boats is half a gallon of water per person per day. If you're considering the intercoastal waterway, you have to consider the mast height and whatever's sitting on top of the mast. That includes the anemometer and a VHF antenna, preferably that would be a metal one. The 440 at 60 feet 6 inches will clear the bridges. There is one in Miami that is lower though. The 490 at 65 feet 3 inches would be very difficult, especially with things sitting on top of the mast, and if you had any storms or surges outside of the intercoastal waterway, will raise the height of the water in the intercoastal waterway, making it almost impossible to clear the bridges. Interestingly, the difference between the displacement of the two boats equals the difference in the cost, or about 25%. The 440 has a CEA rating of 8 passengers, and the 490 is an A rating of 9 passengers. The beam and the draft between the two boats are very similar. The 490 is only 8 inches wider than the 440. The ballast to displacement ratios on both boats are similar, with the 440 being 27% and the 440 being about 25%. The difference in the fuel is about 10 gallons or 40 liters. The 490 has about 12 more horsepower with the standard engine. As shown earlier, the sail area to displacement is virtually identical between the two boats. Theoretical hull speed difference is about half a knot or slightly less. With the optional tank, the 440 gets 140 gallons and the 490 169 gallons of water. At first glance, you would think there were a lot of similarities in the boats, and there are, but there are also a lot of subtle differences. I'm going to show you in this video what those differences are.
I think the big thing you're going to see difference in the 440 and the 490 is essentially 3 things: storage, storage, and storage. Starting with the Galley, a lot of similarities, except that just notice the counter space. A lot more counter space here. We have a reverse of the sinks; they're facing aft rather than forward, but lots of counter space. This is the microwave that goes up and down. This has a typical ice box that you might be used to in the other Sun Odysseys, where you can access it from the top and from the side. This is very similar, but it's longer and still has the pull-out drawers. The difference is with this boat is it has the trash cans here, has bottle storage after the trash can, and there's a small drawer that pulls out. And in the drawer is a variety of utensil holders. So that's been added. Although I'd imagine you could add utensil holders to the 440 as well. There's storage underneath of the sink, and we still have our hatch over the Galley. The stove and oven, this is a 3-burner, so it's a little bit deeper. Still has the shelves on the side, the ports that are fixed, but it has a shade on them. And this one has a hatch over the on the cabin sole that comes up with a latch, as opposed to lifting the whole thing up, because there's really no usable access on the 440 for that, but this one there is. And this boat also happens to have the refrigerator or freezer drawer and then underneath is storage here, which is rather large. So what you're gaining is a 3-burner, more counter space, a traditional fridge freezer in this boat, same size sinks, roughly the same size storage over here, and the same size storage in all the drawers that I previously mentioned in the 440. Chart table. Again, a forward-facing chart table. The big difference, of course, is this is like a settee on the other side. It's like a booth, a diner booth in a way, and you have a separate station here if you want to leave your settee down and have that be a large couch or a berth or a place where you're watching TV, where if you have a TV mounted on the bulkhead, you could still eat here. You could also just have a separate place to sit. So that's a big difference between the 440 and the 490 is this little settee over here. The chart table is the same size. You still have this cool clock and barometer. This is the same panel, roughly the same storage, except on the settee side there's a shelf there that isn't on the 440. So even though the layout looks the same, there's just these little things that really make a difference for the couple extra feet that are added to the boat. The aft head is accessed from the starboard aft cabin, just like on the 440. Head is here, and behind me is a large shower. It's roughly the same as the 440. The aft cabin, port aft cabin, is very similar to the 440. There's the aft cabinet has electrical, AC circuit breakers, virtually the same hanging locker, virtually the same berth, same storage. Right now we have all our cushions and our sails from the boat just being shipped back here. So it's a symmetrical cabin on this boat, on port and starboard, just like it is on the 440. You have a opening vent here. We have another one off to the side that's a little bit different, and then you have a port light for light aft and up here. Starboard aft cabin, symmetrical to port. We have the same kind of opening ports. We have sliders on the hull port lights or the windows, and we also have light right here. The berth is roughly the same size as the 440. There's a door to the starboard head in here, and the hanging locker is the same on both sides of this boat, and also the same size as on the 440. Underneath the settee, again very similar to the 440, we have air conditioning vents underneath the sides. We have a manifold here for water tanks. This boat has 2 with a spare 3rd entry. There's also a water pump there in an accumulator tank, and under here is the air conditioning. Then there's a 40-liter tank for hot water, and that's the same size as the 440. These are all on hinges. And then the big difference is aft there is a drawer that's underneath, as opposed to a flip-up piece that has the water tank in it. Because the boat's a little bit wider, there's room for a drawer, and underneath it here is a large area where you can put a soft suitcase or something like that. There's also storage underneath of the settee, and the floor pieces come up a little bit different on this boat. There's more of them, and they can be smaller sections that can be lifted separately. Difference is just a little bit extra length in the settee. So if I'm here like this, got my legs up, and someone on the other side can also do the same, and we're not really in each other's space. So the settee cushions, the U-shaped cushions, are just a little bit bigger. And this is kind of an important thing to think about, because the boats that have an aft galley, as opposed to a midship galley, you have a settee over there for additional people in their own space. With this boat, you still can have people in their own space and have the galley in the middle of the boat, the U-shaped galley in the middle of the boat. So this works quite well. It's very well lit. Lights on the side, I can see right out the boat, and they have shades. Ports up here, and ventilated ports overhead. Again with a galley, sinks facing aft, but a lot of counter space. On the 490, the head is split. On the starboard side is the shower and a sink and a mirror and a vanity, and on the port side is a water closet, a mirror, and a sink. So 2 people can be tending to their own business on either side of the boat without having to be in each other's way. So inside here, it's actually quite large. There's a sink outboard right here, and it has a nice shelf, a vanity, and there's a storage locker. And then when I go inboard, there is actually a shower here that has an acrylic door that's actually quite large. So you're not showering on top of the vanity. It's a nice space. Again, the port side of the boat has the the water closet, the head, and it has a sink. There's access to the holding tank, and there's 2 lockers underneath of the sink itself. This storage locker right here has a sleeping bag, a sheet, a pillow, a big duffel bag with a week's worth of clothes, sweaters, shaving kit, and a bunch more just in this one locker. To control the lights in the berth, when you go to bed, you have a bunch of switches right here, so you don't have to go back to the door to shut them off. And if you just want a little bit of light, you can turn on just this one. Same thing on the other side. I've been able to sleep on one of these for about a week. And it's a queen size berth. There's 2 cushions. It's pretty easy just to stay on one cushion, so there's a lot of room for 2 people. Also, when you lean up against the side, this is actually quite comfortable to lean up against. And there's room for a pillow or 2 pillows right here and still have your feet not be over the edge of the bed. Another aspect of the berth is that it has a lot of headroom, so you can sit here and read. There's additional storage here on the 490 near the sink on the starboard side forward. Another one here. 490 has this additional storage here because of the little hallway that goes to the shower. So a drawer here, and there's a pull open hatch here, and there is another storage area underneath the sink, which I'll show you separately. It's quite clever how it goes around the sink drain. You also have these shelves and the drawers underneath. The MR on the 490 is very similar to that of the 440 in position. You have a primary filter here and through holes underneath, a sea strainer here, but aft is the access is actually aft through the aft cabin. There's an overflow for antifreeze and another sea strainer. The sail locker on the 490 is quite expansive. Anchor locker on the 490 is roughly the same as that as the 440.
Typically the boats have the same lighting package. It depends what package you order. But you have basically 3 big choices. You have courtesy lights, overhead lights, and some ambience lights. There are 3-way switches throughout the cabin, and there's some individual switches that you can turn on and off. It's nice in the middle of the night just to turn on some of the ambience lights or the courtesy lights so it's not blaring light in the middle of the night. Now on the camera you're going to see drastic changes, but in reality they're a little bit softer. Here are the courtesy lamps on, overhead lamps, courtesy lamps off. These are the side lights underneath the eaves. The lamps that are on the walls can be turned on and off individually. Again, these are all LED. They're all warm light. You could also just light up one cabin and aft if it's unused. There's a foredeck light, and of course a masthead light. Typical LED navigation lights. Here you see the starboard one. In the cockpit there are 3 sets of lights including the compass. Ideally this would be red. There are your light controls all lit up in blue there. And we have some courtesy lights that also light up the deck on the side when you first enter it. The Bimini itself has overhead lights as well. There's your aft light. Boat looks very interesting at night with all the lights on and the shades pulled up. Gives it kind of an elegant look.
This locker is the propane locker, and it's like the 440 where it has a large receptacle for a large tank if you want it. Over here is a sink. It's a good place for a fish station, a fish cleaning station here. The tables flips up so you can have seating for at least 4 to 6 people pretty easily. Storage in here for bottles, and we have a refrigerator in there. The table can seat 4 to 6 people, and you just put your hands underneath, and that goes down. When we commission these up at my yard, we varnish these tables. In the middle is the optional refrigerator, drinks, sandwiches, and there's a bottle locker here. This boat has a center compass, just like the 440, so you'd see it from here with one of the lubber lines. And back here, this is the propane locker. Here, again, a big propane locker for a larger tank that, if you wanted that, probably a 20-pound tank. And this is the sink. And this is probably where I'd put my fish cleaning station. This boat has the Ray Marine system here, so you could sit and sail long distances and look at your instrumentation right at the correct angle for you. Same thing with the autopilot, and the starboard side has the throttle. The other side also has the Ray Marine system, and you can also control your autopilot through that here. Again, like all the Sun Odysseys and even the yacht systems boats, they have your main sheet and your Jeanneau are brought back here to the cockpit. These are 2 large lockers right here, and this is where you would store perhaps on the port side scuba tanks on the inside on racks. Shape, but there's a lot more storage, a little bit different deck layout. For example, there's a giant sail locker right here. All these are Lumar hatches, they're all flush, double lifelines, there's a bulwark. You have the option of getting teak decks if you want.
Generator access is the same on both boats. You can actually pull the generator straight out, and underneath where I'm sitting is the life raft storage, and that hatch can be opened when the swim platform is in the upwards position. The provision for a forward asymmetrical tang is on the bow pulpit of both the 440 and the 490. This is the 490. You can see the amount of space that you have on the side decks. Very similar to that of the 440. Very, very similar layout. Same kind of road locker, same pulpit. This is the 440. Again, you can see the side decks, how wide they are. Similar hatches. And the same kind of anchor road locker and bow pulpit. Both boats offer the option of having an expandable cockpit seat to a lounge. You can have 1, 2, or none. This is the 440 you see here. The sides of the boat are very similar. There's a fairly flat section above the chine, above the waterline. Similar looking bow pulpits. Same kind of inset windows. Both keels are very similar on both boats. This is a shallow draft model. Both boats have twin rudders. The big difference being that the 490 is a sail drive and the 440 is a direct drive. From a bird's eye perspective, the masts are very similar. Both have swept back spreaders, they're rake masts, they're fractional rigs, same kind of rigging attachments, provisions for a code 0 or asymmetrical spinnaker. And both boats have a lowered gooseneck to allow easier handling of the sails. The cockpits are virtually identical. There is some difference in the length of the seats, however.
The starboard side lounge has one release right here. You pull it up, pull it down, put your cushion over. And then there's a filler piece here to make a very large day berth or a lounge. The boat is unique in the fact that it has inboard winches. So the winches are inboard of the wheels rather than outboard. Very easy for you to move your Jeanneau sheet from one side over to the other. You can also have the autopilot do an auto tack if you don't want to steer the boat during that process, which you can easily do, and then just handle your Jeanneau sheets by themselves. The winches on the 440 are exactly the same in positioning, inboard of the wheels. The cockpit is very, very, very similar to the 490. It'd be hard to tell the difference if you're coming aboard them at night. The Sun Odysseys have a transom-mounted flip-down platform. The ladder is built into a recess here. It's a 4-rung ladder that allows you to put your foot in the bottom rung and not have your knee in your face like you would in a 3-rung ladder, so it's a lot easier to board. Keep in mind when this is up, you need to have the portable ladder deployed in case you fell overboard and have to be able to get back on board, and you hang that over this rail here. On the 490 and the 440, the wheel has also a dual multi-function display on either side, but it is the next size down than the yacht, like a 9-inch, and it has your counter, your bow thruster down here, and your throttle down here. One of the ideas I have for the boat is a iPad mount here to have even a third display, if you wish, or we can even mount it in the center. This 490 has the teak option. Comes up, and it's the same table essentially that's on the DS44. It locks in place either side, so 4 people realistically here. One of the things to pay attention to when getting a 490 or a 440 is how your Bimini works right here. You could have a longer Bimini, but you're just going to need to duck under it quicker than you would with a shorter Bimini. My preference is to have a longer Bimini, and we have one that we custom make that has an extension on it that you can remove if you wish, and have a very short Bimini in offshore situations or really be able to see the sail. But it's an attachment here, so I would duck right about here to get underneath of it. The arrangement is the same on the 490, so depending on where you're walking here is your entrance. So this is cut back here, and it's very easy to do. But even a longer Bimini here would still work. You would just duck here rather than here.
The 490 is a contestant in the Sail Best Boats of 2019. The 440 won it last year. The standard sails on the boat are from Maelstrom, a very good sailmaker.